kids in Korea won't have friends if they don't go to hagwon. Now, to me personally, this is a strange take. I've heard it a lot from a lot of parents, mostly Korean parents. So a hagwon is like an after school program. So in Japan they call it cram school. In America, I know we do have kumon, which is like math and English usually. So yeah, it's a lot of the time when kids will go after school somewhere to learn something, math, English, piano, taekwondo, anything like that. Soccer, basketball, all of those are called hagwon because it's outside of school kind of thing. Institution, academy. So I live in an area with a good amount of hagwon, I would say, but not a lot. And then if you've ever heard of Korean hagwon, right now in a lot of videos and topics, they're talking about Daechidong, which is in Gangnam, I think. Yeah, and in Seoul, there's this area called Daechidong where they have a lot of like elite hagwon, and especially for English and math, they're really popular. And it's like a lot of people will believe that if you don't send your kids there, if your kids don't go there, then they won't make it into a good university, they won't get a good job, they won't learn anything. So a lot of parents pay a lot of money per month to send their kids to hagwon. So let's start off with the reason why people send their kids to hagwon. So Korea as a country is fairly young as like a modern country that we know today. So I'll spare you the details, but Korean history, modern history is, we think of it in terms of it. The democracy really started in the 1980s. Okay, so basically in Korea, public school and the education system started increasing in quality and everything. So, infrastructure was getting better, people were building things, they were making more money and things like that. But education has always been seen as the best way to improve your status in Korea. So even a long time ago in like the Yangban era, people, if they could read, if they could write, if they were literate, they could gain a lot in society. They could gain status, and then their whole family's status would be elevated. So, in Korea, education is seen as very important, and it's basically like you have to study. You must study, and you have to go to hagwon, basically. So one reason that I've personally seen, because when I first got to Korea, I was like, why are you sending your kids to hagwon? I don't want to do that. Like, why would you ever send your kids to hagwon? Because when I went to school, I'm from the United States, and we had after school programs at school, or we had sports, and sometimes you would have sports outside of school. Like you could join, like I joined a cheerleading team, or you could join a soccer team, or football, or whatever. Gymnastics, ballet, piano, whatever. So, those are pretty popular in America too, but our systems are very different. So in Korea, a lot of places are walkable, and so people want their hagwon to be next to the school, so kids get out of school and go straight to the hagwon. A big reason for why it's so persistent in the culture, I think, is when kids start going to like kindergarten, elementary school, if they get out of school, the first and second graders in elementary school get out of school pretty early, like 1:30 sometimes, like 12:30. So the kids will get out of school, but the parents are still working. So a lot of households in Korea are dual income households. So they do mapbori. So if the mom works and the dad works, and they both get off work at 5 or 6, and then they have to go pick up their kid gets out at 1:30, 12:30, then what are the kids going to do all day? So a lot of parents will be like, I have no choice but to send my kid to hagwon, because then then they can do something for a few hours. They won't have to just go home and watch TV. They'll have a structured activity. They'll learn something. And then also there's this fear that if you don't start piano at 5 or taekwondo at 5, or if you don't start learning, an instrument or English when you're very, very young, then you won't catch up to your peers. Like, your peers will have surpassed you in a year or two, and then there's no way you can catch up ever. So it's like if one mom says, oh yeah, I send my kid to piano, then you're kind of feeling like, oh, I should send my kid to piano because I want them to learn faster and better, and because when you hear someone who's like, I've started playing piano when I was 6 and now I'm a prodigy, and so there's that kind of culture of like, we need to send our kids as soon as possible. There's the culture of kids getting off school early. Mom has to work, dad has to work. So where are they gonna go? And then hagwon crop up really close to the schools, so then the kids just come over, or even the teachers will go and pick the kids up, take them to the hagwon, or there's a shuttle bus that will take them to their apartment, to their house. So it's a very attractive thing for parents to do, but it is very expensive, and a lot of people end up paying thousands of dollars a month just for hagwon, when we have free public school, we have free school lunches, we have all of these things. We have free daycare in Korea. We have subsidized preschool, which is called yuchiwon. Some people call it kindergarten. So yeah, it's really interesting to me. But the phrase that sticks out to me the most when I talk to other moms is, oh, well, yeah, but my kids wouldn't have friends if they don't go to hagwon. And like, to me, I grew up in rural Tennessee, like a very, very small town. You couldn't walk anywhere. I remember my mom and I tried to walk to the grocery store one time, and it was like, it took a long time. And I was like, as a kid, I wasn't subjected to walking through neighborhoods for a long amount of time. And then, like, even on our little road, it's like the sidewalk isn't good enough for us to go on. And so I grew up in a place where there was hardly any walkability. Nothing is close by. You have to have a car. And then we never really go to the grocery store or the doctor on foot. But you can do that in Korea. I live in a walkable neighborhood in Korea, and it's wonderful. It's amazing. But yeah, also when I was younger, I made friends at school. I would go home, and then I would just be at home by myself. I didn't have siblings either. And I would just go home, watch TV, do my homework, get ready for bed, have dinner, whatever, and then see my friends the next day. So sometimes I joined things like cheerleading or gymnastics or Girl Scouts or whatever. But I wouldn't explicitly do those things to make friends. Like, I felt like I already had friends in school. I already had friends at school who I could talk to. But, in Korea, there's people always tell me, well, people always tell me that in Korea, if my kid doesn't go to hagwon, they won't have any friends. And I just think, wow, that's really just, it's so different from how I grew up thinking, because I would have to make the effort to go to a friend's house. I would have to ask my parents, can I go to their house? They would have to ask their parents, can she come over? And then we'd have to coordinate. Or we'd have a sleepover for somebody's birthday. Or, Saturdays we'd go to the mall or the movies or something. So I didn't grow up hanging out with my friends every single day after school. That was not a thing that I did. And Korean kids can do that here. They can go walk across the street home together. They can live in the same apartment together. They can play on the playground together. They can go to the convenience store to eat like tteokbokki. They can go, you know, obviously they can go to hagwon, but I just feel like you don't have to you don't have to have hagwon to make friends. But yeah, that's just my perspective. And my oldest will go to elementary school next year. And so we'll see what happens. We'll see what he thinks about it. And I think it would be good if he went to a few after school things, because I work and my husband works. But even just for him, it would be fun for him to do taekwondo with his friends or to do, things like that. And another thing is, my husband plays piano, but I had a friend who opened a piano hagwon, and I asked her if she would teach her kids piano at home, and she's like, absolutely not. And I was like, why not? And she said, because my kids can't really learn from me, even though I'm a teacher. They're not going to learn from me because I have a different dynamic with them. So it makes sense that you would send your kids somewhere else, even if you're competent enough to teach it. So if we want our kid to learn piano, we might send him to piano hagwon if he wants to learn it. But I don't know. As a parent, personally, I think it's great that there are so many options for after school. The elementary schools do have free after school programs where kids can stay longer, but they tend to be very competitive. You have to sign up. And I think they prioritize people who have to work, like both parents have to work. So yeah, I do understand what people are talking about when they say that. Another thing is, when we were living in a villa, we lived in like a 4 or 5 story little building. And we live right next to an apartment, right next to like 3 or 4 different apartments. And my sister-in-law, she would tell me, oh, if you don't move to an apartment, your kids won't have any friends. And I was like, but when I was growing up, I lived in a rural, but also I lived in a suburb. It was very far away. I remember I had a friend I could kind of walk to her house, but I only went to her house maybe 4 or 5 times. I really didn't go there that often. It's hard to walk over there. You're told, stranger danger, you're told don't go by yourself. Whereas here, kids walk around by themselves. They can take the bus by themselves. If they're, middle schoolers, high schoolers, will take the bus, will take public transportation to go places. So yeah, it's just really interesting in this idea of they won't have any friends if you don't do X, Y, or Z. This is a topic for maybe another video, but they also say that about if I don't give my kid a phone, then all of their friends have a phone, they'll feel left out, and then they won't have any friends. So I feel like this idea of friends, what friends do with each other, or, I don't know. I just feel like this is kind of different than how I grew up. I think it's really interesting. So yeah, I feel like, I just feel like it's really interesting. I think personally, because my kids are mixed and I'm not Korean, and I speak English to them and I want them to be around other kids who are like them. I have a lot of friends who also are like me, and we get together with our kids a lot, and we're bilingual and trilingual, and we hang out with our kids, and our kids see other kids who are also like that. So I feel like on the weekends, we either stay home, relax, clean the house, go to the park, go out to eat, whatever, have family time. Or, I'll go see a friend, or a friend will come over, or we'll go to the mall, go to a museum. But I just don't have this feeling of my kids don't have any friends. What do I do, Because as a kid, I had a lot of free time, a lot of downtime. I was an only child, and I had a lot of, creative free time, creative thinking time. I played outside a lot. I read. I watched TV. I played with my toys. I did art and stuff. So I don't think, we need to schedule our kids to do things all the time. But I think personally, if I were ranking reasons why I would send my kids to like an after school program, them not going equals they don't have friends would not rank on my list, Like, I just don't think that my kids will not have friends if they don't go to a certain hagwon. So I think a big reason why, like, Korean society is a certain way, like school and everything, like, kids get off school earlier, and in a lot of cases, this is a generalization, but a lot of the time the mom will not work. She'll be, a stay-at-home mom or whatever, and then, or she'll have like a short job or a short activity or something, and then she'll be home when the kids get off school, and then the kids will just be with her all day. I think that's kind of like an assumption. So maybe when the Korean, school system was coming up with this, like, I think in Finland, they also get off school for lunch. They go home, they eat lunch, and then they go back to school, or they have shorter hours or whatever. So I don't know, maybe schools have that kind of, maybe you need to go home early and like relax. But then it forces parents who don't have that option, who are working, to come up with another solution. So they have to send their kid to hagwon. They have to send their kid to extracurricular, or they have to hire a babysitter. They have to hire something, And I've worked at hagwon. I've worked at schools, yuchiwon and stuff like that. And it's like the teachers are there to teach their kids, and the parents will get upset if their kids don't learn anything. So if the friends are like jabbering the whole time, then it would hinder the teachers and the students' ability to learn. So I don't know, it's just such an interesting thing to me. I'm not from here, but I've been here for a really long time, and so whenever other parents tell me, yeah, my kids won't have any friends if they don't go to hagwon, I'm like, we live in a walkable area. You can go see your friend in their house. You can go see their friend in the park. You can, but that's another thing. Maybe I'll talk about this in another video. But yeah, Korean parents don't really invite people over. They don't really invite their kids' friends over there very often. I will say, hey, do you guys want to come over to our house? And they'll be like, okay, maybe another time. And then they really won't. It really depends on the relationship you have with them, but they're very hard to convince to just like come over to your house. They feel like they have to give you a present or something. Or they feel like they should return the favor, and then they feel like they have to like, do it a certain way, have fruit, have snacks, whatever. But yeah, so there's not really a culture of going to someone's house. So if the kids are gonna be somewhere and you want them to have structured time, then yeah, it kind of makes sense to send them to hagwon, but it just doesn't cross my mind as the only place where my kids will ever make friends, like it might change when they get older. Who knows what will happen. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you live in Korea? Do you have kids? Do you send them to hagwon? Do you work in a hagwon? Are you Korean? Did you grow up going to hagwon? Do you think that kids have other ways to make friends? Or like, what was your experience? I'm really curious. You can leave me a comment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for listening. Bye.